Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 10.
George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd!
More than a dozen cities across the nation are still reeling from a grim night of violent riots. The story is the same here in downtown Fargo, but authorities suspect it's not our people behind the madness. Valley News Team's Courtney Lockie explains.
What began as a peaceful protest, thousands gathering and marching to honor the life of George Floyd, ended with police spraying tear gas and rubber bullets at rioters and looters, destroying businesses in downtown Fargo.
It was night and day. Good things come with the sun and the bad came with the dark.
They were traveling from city to city. They talked about some of the cities they had already been to, some of the cities that they might go to.
Police say they had several people undercover in the crowds, saying the ones leading this riot were not our people and were only here to cause mayhem.
We walked around our city, no cops, nothing, and nobody was destroying anything. We held each other accountable.
They say 10 people were arrested, some locals and out-of-staters. 4 officers needed medical attention and 8 squad cars were damaged.
One of my vehicles got the back window got busted out when they were throwing chairs.
That's not something we promote. That's not something we should be doing. I feel like what we did in the morning was okay. That was good enough to get our voices out there.
Peaceful protesters like Simone are fighting for the same thing.
The love is all we need right now. And if you live in our community, we need to come out and stick together.
But say this is not the way to do it.
I'm not going to loot. I root for peace and not for violence.
In Fargo, Courtney Lockie, Valley News Live.
In all, Fargo police say there were 23 agencies that assisted in downtown Saturday night from both Minnesota and North Dakota, as well as the National Guard. Fargo police have released the information on 10 people arrested Saturday night tied to the riots. These 6 are from Fargo. All have been charged with a misdemeanor of and a felony of preventing arrest. 2 of those arrested are from West Fargo and felony preventing arrest. Ted Jr. from Fresno, California is one of 2 without Fargo or West Fargo address that were arrested. Had a warrant through Fargo on a failure to appear charge, though. He is also facing charges of possession and carrying a concealed weapon. Now, Gadana Hasmati, with no permanent address, is also facing charges of preventing arrest, though Fargo police say he bailed out before his charges could be listed. Well, this morning was a drastic change from the scene we saw last night in downtown Fargo. For businesses already hit hard due to the coronavirus pandemic, they took another blow with vandalism during Saturday night's riot. But the Fargo community rallied together to clean up the mess and pick up the pieces. Valley News Team's Katie Opperly spoke with people as they picked up their brooms and sponges and got to work.
This is disgusting. These people use their life savings. These people use their last dime to make these businesses happen. This is their legacy for their children and children.
After riots in the streets of downtown Fargo, businesses were looted and left with broken windows and vandalism spray painted on the walls. The community sprang into action.
Community is one of the most important things, and anytime that we can help nurture any sort of that community vibes, it's, we're always striving to be better.
Pounds became the home base for a mass cleaning effort where dozens of volunteers offered up their help.
I feel like, this is the neighbors helping each other and smiling and saying, here, we're going to clean up and we're going to be a much stronger community because of what happened last night. I think there's some lessons that need to be learned in some conversations. Governor Burgum last night said, we got to continue to have those conversations.
For hours, volunteers scrubbed and swept.
They keep coming to those nasty words and they keep trying to rid that stain that we have on some of our buildings.
The community had such a large response that some volunteers had to be turned away as there wasn't anything more that needed to be done. A good problem to have. In Fargo, Katie Opperly, Valley News Live.
The Downtown Fargo Cleanup Facebook event was shared more than 1,000 times with nearly 1,000 people saying they attended. West Fargo police have arrested a man after they witnessed a car strike a protester marching around 3:45 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Police say this man, 47-year-old Michael Griffin, was arrested after they saw him drive past a roadblock and accelerate towards a protester on Main Avenue. The protester was on the car for 3 blocks. Griffin was arrested for aggravated reckless driving. The victim sustained non-life-threatening injuries. In Minot today, protesters gathered peacefully in Oak Park. The service included 3 guest speakers along with a candlelight vigil and a moment of silence for George Floyd. Nearly 300 people marked themselves as attending the event on Facebook. Bree Nicholson, who organized the demonstration, said she wanted to remember Floyd and show solidarity with the others standing against oppression of Black lives in America.
It's important because people are dying, and North Dakota is very secluded. We're kind of cut off from the rest of the country, and I think it's very important to show the rest of the country that we are in solidarity with them.
Nicholson said although she, like many others, are angry, she did emphasize peace before the event. Minot Police Chief John Klug released a statement beforehand showing solidarity with the community. Detroit Lakes Mayor Matt Brank has issued a curfew for the city that went into effect at 9 p.m. and lasts until 6 a.m. tomorrow. During the nighttime curfew, no travel is allowed on any public street, sidewalk, or path. Valley News Live has learned this is being done out of an abundance of caution. We reached out to Becker County Sheriff Todd Glander, who says at this time the protests in downtown Detroit Lakes are not violent. And this was the scene on the Interstate 35W bridge in Minneapolis Sunday as protesters scrambled out of the way of a tanker truck heading towards the crowd. DPS Commissioner John Harrington says it appears that no protesters were injured and the driver of the truck has been arrested and is now in the Hennepin County Jail. The interstate was closed to traffic about 40 minutes prior. Governor Tim Walz extended the curfew under order in the Twin Cities, which is in effect from now until tomorrow morning. Well, breaking news out of South Dakota, our sister station in Sioux Falls is on the scene in downtown Sioux Falls, where a day of peaceful protests have started to turn. Dakota News Now is reporting thousands showed up in Sioux Falls for the peaceful protest, but tonight some have begun throwing rocks at officers. Just before the 10 o'clock hour, we saw officers dispense tear gas on the crowd. The Sioux Falls mayor has also declared a state of emergency for the city and implemented a 10 p.m. curfew that will remain in effect until 7 tomorrow morning. Dakota News Now is reporting many in attendance are from South Dakota, but that several from out of state are also in attendance at tonight's protest. Well, across the United States, National Guard soldiers and police have been overrun trying to contain the riots. From New York to L.A., NBC's Jennifer Johnson reports from Washington.
Across America, scenes of destruction after another night of rioting, looting, and fires. Police launching tear gas and rubber bullets in Minneapolis. Days of fury after 46-year-old George Floyd died while Officer Derek Chauvin was seen kneeling on his neck for almost 9 minutes. Chauvin has been charged with murder. The 3 other arresting officers have been fired.
What's happened to George Floyd is indelibly etched into the soul of Minneapolis.
In New York, violent protests, police cars set on fire, dozens of officers injured. NYPD vehicles drove into crowds to gain some control.
Clearly, we need to do a full investigation and look at the actions of those officers and see what was done and why it was done.
Cities from Philadelphia to Los Angeles look like war zones. In Washington, D.C., an angry mob tried again to get over barriers outside the White House.
It was an organized group that appeared more bent on destruction than on protest.
President Trump and others believe those inciting the violence are outside extremist groups. He has now designated the group Antifa a terrorist organization.
We can't have these Antifa militant radicals who are traveling across state lines using military tactics to attack our cities.
From coast to coast, thousands of businesses have been destroyed, police stations burned, streets impassable. Law enforcement now bracing for another night of unrest. Jennifer Johnson, NBC News, Washington.
Hundreds of Minnesotans have come out to Sanford Middle School in South Minneapolis to drop off food donations for those who have been affected by by the rioting that took place throughout the week and continued this weekend. The tone in the city has shifted as the sun sets and rises, and today is no different than days prior. Cars are lining up with donations of food, laundry detergent, and other essential items that those living in affected areas may not be able to get right now. After the call went out for these items, hundreds of bags now line the sidewalk and grass outside of Sanford. Well, Fargo police have arrested a woman for the murder of her boyfriend. Police responded to a call for a disturbance in the 1600 block of 33rd Avenue South around 3:30 Saturday morning. When police got to the scene, they noticed a man with a serious stab wound. He was identified as Keenan Poitra, a 27-year-old from Fargo. Poitra was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police immediately detained Poitra's girlfriend, 33-year-old Taryn Stately of Fargo, and after investigation, arrested her for murder. Police say the case is still under investigation. We will continue to follow this story. Well, the state of North Dakota announced another COVID-19 related death today, bringing the state's total to 61. Today's reported death case was a Cass County man in his 90s with underlying health issues. Of those 61 deaths, 45 are from the virus. 7 people have died with the virus, and 9 death records are still pending. Overall, another 24 people tested positive for the virus, with 20 of those in Cass County. The active case rate in the state is now at 557. 36 North Dakotans remain in the hospital. In Minnesota, the state announced another 14 deaths from the virus, bringing the state's total to 1,040. 2 of today's reported deaths were Clay County residents, one in their 70s, another in their 90s. Another 664 new positive cases were also announced today. The active case number now sits at 5,115, down 185 from yesterday. 555 Minnesotans are currently in the hospital. 257 of those patients are in the ICU. Funeral arrangements have been set for fallen Grand Forks police officer Cody Holty, who was killed this past week in the line of duty. The funeral will be held this Tuesday, June 2nd, at the Ralph Engelstad Arena in Grand Forks. Visitation will occur from 10 a.m. to noon, with the funeral to follow at 1. The ceremony is open to the public. You can also watch the funeral on KVLY and on ValleyNewsLive.com. Officer Holty's family issued a statement Saturday thanking the community for the overwhelming outpouring of support. The man accused in Holty's death, 41-year-old Salama Pendleton, was charged Friday with 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder.